So I want you to check out this video I'm about to play for you. It's a speech given by Prime Ministers of Canada and also the President of France.
For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order. We joined its institutions, we praised its principles, we benefited from its predictability. And because of that, we could pursue values-based foreign policies under its protection. We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals. And we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination. The multilateral institutions on which the middle powers have relied, the WTO, the UN, the COP, the architecture, the very architecture of collective problem solving are under threat. And as a result, many countries are drawing the same conclusions, that they must develop greater strategic autonomy in energy, food, critical minerals, in finance and supply chains. And this impulse is understandable. A country that can't feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. When the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. But let's be clear-eyed about where this leads. A world of fortresses will be poorer, more fragile, and less sustainable. And there's another truth. If great powers abandon even the pretense of rules and values for the unhindered pursuit of their power and interests, the gains from transactionalism will become harder to replicate. Hegemons cannot continually monetize their relationships. Allies will diversify to hedge against uncertainty. They'll buy insurance, increase options in order to rebuild sovereignty. Sovereignty that was once grounded in rules but will increasingly be anchored in the ability to withstand pressure. This room knows this is classic risk management.
And it's a time of peace, stability, and predictability. But it's clear that we are reaching a time of instability, of imbalances, both from the security and defense point of view and the economic point of view. Look at the situation where we are. I mean, a shift towards autocracy against democracy, more violence, more than 60 wars in 2024, an absolute record, even if I understood a few of them were fixed. And conflict has become normalized, hybrid, expanding into new domains, space, digital, information, cyber, trade, and so on. It's as well a shift towards a world without rules, where international law is trampled underfoot, and where the only law that seems to matter is that of the strongest, and imperial ambitions are resurfacing. Obviously, the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, which will enter into its 4th year next month, and conflicts continue in the Middle East and across Africa. This is as well a shift towards a world without effective collective governance and where multilateralism is weakened by powers that obstruct it or turn away from it, and rules are undermined. And I can multiply the examples of international bodies weakened or left by the key economies. And when we look at the situation, it's clearly a very concerning time.
So in the video you just saw now, let's pay more attention to Carney's speech. He mentioned a couple things that should raise everybody's eyebrow. He said that international law only applied to basically your identity and also what the victim is. So he's essentially saying what we've all suspected, that the international law and the way it's applied is basically one-sided. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we saw our EU leaders were basically condemning Russia and also removing them from various international sports, let's say, for example, from FIFA, from Eurovision, and so on. And contrast that to what Israel has done in Gaza, we see that there were barely any kind of condemnation, and we still have Israel in the Eurovision and so on. So you can see like the disparity here right away. He also goes further to say that there's a rupture in the international system, and as a result, they need to hedge the bet. They need to see what's working for them. And recently, he went to China and brokered the deal. In China, in the next few years now, you're going to be seeing Chinese cars all over China. I don't know if America's going to accept that, but only time will tell. He basically said America is trying to use all the system that they've created over the past few years to subordinate Europeans with all the endless tariffs that they've been pulling up and all. And he said that is fundamentally unacceptable. So it seems like Europe is finally drawing a red line in the sand that, you know what, we won't take this anymore. Like, this is unacceptable. That is what they essentially say. And honestly, finally, but the thing that we're going to wonder is NATO has been a stabilizing force in Europe for the past 80 years, ever since World War II. And what happens if NATO suddenly is no longer a cohesive organization as it used to be? As you can tell from Europe's history, they've always been fighting against each other. And ever since the invention or the creation of NATO, this has largely subsided. But NATO leaving, what does that make Europe? It's just going to be a bunch of countries just fighting each other. I currently have behind me here Donald Trump speaking at Davos, where he basically said he will not invade Greenland, which means military forces off the table in Greenland. His main case for taking Greenland is because he doesn't want Russia and China to take advantage of the ice melting in Greenland and use that as an opportunity to be able to obviously influence people there and also build infrastructure. He doesn't want that. He wants America to be the one in charge of this piece of land. Greenland is in a strategic position because it literally separates Russia from America. He believes that the Europeans do not have the capacity to be able to protect it, and only America does. And he's proposing that America should have Greenland, because if America can have Greenland, it's a little thing the NATO members can do, because they've not been paying their bills in NATO for the longest time. So it's a little thing they can do. This just makes you think that if now that we are truly in the multipolar world, and also finally European leaders and NATO members are actually realizing that it's America is finally pulling back from their hegemonic position, and we are truly in a multipolar world. What does it mean for the rest of the world? What does it mean for the middle powers, the great powers, and for the superpowers like Russia, China, and America? What does it lead to? If you found this video interesting, please drop a like, subscribe, and also drop a comment as well. Have a wonderful rest of your day.